I think it's possible for anybody to get 1% market share of that. So this is the last 12 months of sales, by the way. This is just everything. A minimum tax amount of $6,000 in the past year. You have 1,488 deals. And this is everything. This is every single type of asset class, everything in this MSA. So if you look at everything in total in the entire state, you have 4,100 transactions total, every asset class. So that means the rest of the entire state of Tennessee is another, basically the MSA of Nashville, that greater area has 35% of the entire market of the entire state. Now, obviously, if you could just go, if you go a little bit larger outside there, you might have a little bit more pockets, but let's look at things like retail, right? So like if you look at all of retail, and obviously this encompasses a lot, right? If you just do shopping centers, retail stores, that looks like, out of the 4,100, this is like 15% of the market. If you add in multifamily, you said you were looking to do multifamily. If you look at all multifamily deals here, multifamily is only 7 or 8 or so percent of that market. It looks like 600 office buildings traded, which is kind of wild to think about. Let's look at industrial. I feel like industrial would be interesting too. Yeah, so I mean, residential land, or even if you did all land sales, this is 30% of the market in the last 12 months. So it's like, I look at this as like, okay, well, I think that you personally, if you did the entire state of Tennessee, these 3 asset classes, you could get 1% market share. And I think like, I always look at that as like, that's an of course, right? Like you should definitely be able to capture 1% of that market share, which means if you prospected these 3 asset classes throughout the entire state with these metrics above $6,000 in taxes, we can obviously go back a few other things, but I think it's possible for anybody to get 1% market share of that, right? So if your average sale is like, 500 to $1 million, 5% commission at 14 million, you're still having a good year. So I do believe, I see that as very, very possible. I think that because if you did, instead of the entire state of Tennessee, we just did the Nashville. If you just did the Nashville MSA, you still have a decent marketplace, right? Like but obviously expanding a little bit, retail, multifamily in its entirety. The problem is that, like, think about it. Let's go this way. Instead of doing sales, let's do what has not sold within. I'm going to pull a lead list for you as an example, right? Let's say we just say not within the last 5 years. Let's say we want to do with owner includes a phone number. We're going to do taxes. Let's do a little bit larger than 6K. Let's do like 10K. So if I just pull an average lead list for you, you only have 2,280 properties. And this is like every different type of asset class you want to prospect. So you only have like, your lead list is only 2,280. And now every single year of the 2,280 properties that you're going to be prospecting right now, keep in mind that we just talked about how in this MSA alone, if we zoomed out and we did last 12 months tax amount. So hold on a second. So this is exactly what I was trying to point out. Okay. So if we just took the exact same criteria that we're prospecting right now, 156 sales occurred in the last 12 months. The lead list that you're pulling, if you do not sold within the last 5 years, has 2,280. So 150 sold, and then you have a lead list of 2,280, which means of that 2,280, roughly, because obviously I'm including a phone number, which kind of excludes some. So 75 to 100 properties in that list are going to trade every year. Because this is the one thing that kind of skews it is how many of them actually have a phone number. I'd say, that's why I say 75%. So 2,900 properties, but 2,280, which means you can pull out of that lead list. If you're getting on the phone, there are probably going to be something like 50 to 100 transactions per year in that lead list, in this 2,280 lead list. I'm not saying you're going to sell all of them, obviously, but this is saying like how many actual transactions are going to be in this bucket of leads if you exported it. The problem is like if you only exported this based on this MSA, you only have 2,280 leads that keep ripping through over and over and over and over and over again. Now, fine, like let's zoom out. Let's maybe do 6,000. And then instead of doing the Nashville MSA, you still can probably pull maybe 150 to 200 leads out of this that will actually trade every year. And then what if we did, instead of, I keep accidentally doing this, Tennessee. By the way, this is what everyone should be doing when they're looking at lead lists. Because if it's too small, it's a problem. This is your entire market. This is everything you could possibly sell if you just stayed in Tennessee. Only the asset classes you want to prospect, not sold in the last 5 years. Like, this is it. You have 10,000 properties to rip through. And it's the same 10,000 freaking properties over and over and over again, right? And let's just say that you speak to maybe 2,000 to 3,000 of these people, right? If we go down and what has within the last 12 months, 812 sales. That means you're going to probably pull out, again, 812 into 10,000. That's 8%. which is actually kind of crazy. Let's say you pull out 8% or maybe even half that. Let's say 4%. That's 120 to 150 sales out of your database every year. Every year. That means if you speak to 3,000 people of that 10,000 list, if you exported this lead list in its entirety, you're going to speak to roughly 3,000 people that are actual true owners. And you should be able to, of that 3,000 person list, if you just worked that 3,000 person list for the rest of your career in that database, I'm not saying you're going to get every single one of the sales, but there should be 120 to 150 transactions per year in that database. That's the importance of building a database. Like my database right now has, I don't know, 40,000 people in it, 50,000 people in it. And every year there's got to be, 2,000 transactions that occur in that database every year. I'm not saying I definitely don't get all of them for sure. I just want a small piece. One day I'd like to get 10% of that share. I don't know if I will. But this is why I'm saying even in your little, if you just do the Nashville MSA, it's a small market. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know how much of that you've pulled already, right? I mean, if we went back to that real quick, I think you had 4,000 properties that you could pull. Instead of Tennessee, we'll just we'll get rid of that. Yeah, 4,000 properties. And if you want, start there, right? And then you can start expanding larger and larger, if you need to, when you need to.
A couple months ago, I was at 100. That's due to the fact that I hand dial, and I'm not in a position to get like a dialer or me. So I'm putting my own. I'm pulling like my from property taxes, getting information to owners. Right now, I think I'm at a 50, and I think just putting more hours in hand dialing.
Like how many calls a day are you making hand dialing?
It depends. I say 100 to 250 a day.
I mean, look, I've seen some people really put in the work and they're doing 300 plus hand dials a day, every day, which I know, listen, it is grueling work. I can understand for sure to hand dial. And I give you a lot of credit because obviously it's a much different commitment when you're hand dialing than it is with a dialer. It's meaningless. It's mindless when you do a dialer, right? It becomes mindless. But when you're,
that's right.
When you're not doing it that way and you have to do it, the other way, it's obviously a little bit more complex. So I give you some credit there. But yeah, I think keep in mind that a dialer is about $150 a month, right? So I don't know what else you pay for, but obviously if there's other things that you can pay for or other things that you can cancel that maybe aren't as lucrative to your business now, that can give you that ability to get into, pulling some lead lists there, or even partner with somebody where hey, who here has Reonomy and needs me to make calls, and who has buyers where you can, prospect with other people, or that you can get access to more leads and a dialer.
Yeah.
Joining keep in mind that especially at the beginning of your career, the percentage basis of what you make on every deal is less important than the access to tools that will allow you to get there faster. If you start let's just say, someone like yourself where become a part of a team where they have access to these tools, you might be able to do 200% more work in this right now. And yeah, on every deal, you might make a little bit less money for sure, but at least allows you to scale faster, put money in your bank, and then eventually within 6 to 12 or 24 months of being a part of a team, you can go off and do it on your own.